And to cast some light on this complex political situation, we're joined now by the ABC's election analyst, Antony Green. I should introduce you as the man who never sleeps.
It's a bit like that this week.
Now, you've been factoring in the West Australian Nationals MP, Tony Crook, as one of the coalition members, and you heard the robust discussion we just had with those MPs there. Why are you calling it this way?
Well, he nominated as a National, and we didn't have any distinction before election day that the Nationals in WA were not part of the National Party. We don't have a category called Nationals in the coalition and Nationals out of the coalition. Perhaps that's what we should be doing, but it's up to Mr Crook. He's an individual member of Parliament. We've had a Democrat and a Family First candidate disendorsed through the campaign. We still count them towards their respective parties. We haven't changed the affiliation of anybody through the election campaign. It is for Mr Crook to make up his own mind, but for the moment we've put a footnote on the front page saying he may not be a member of the coalition. But the only way we can actually remove him from the coalition is to actually take the WA National Party out of the coalition, and it's a bit complex to do.
What if he got in touch and said to you, OK, I don't consider myself part of the coalition?
Well, we'll try and do that. But, I mean, the ABC doesn't determine how many votes. The ABC doesn't determine how many members the coalition has got. We've got on the information we've got on so far. If he wants to be treated differently, that's his call entirely.
OK, negotiations with the independents start next week. What happens from here?
Well, the Parliament will sit at some stage, and sometime between now and when the Parliament sits, the Governor-General will either appoint somebody as Prime Minister, or it'll be left to the Parliament to determine the caretaker conventions will go on. If Julia Gillard can cobble together an agreement, then she will go out of caretaker and become full-time Prime Minister and meet the Parliament whenever it sits. If the opposition cobble together an agreement, the Prime Minister is within her rights to continue on until the Parliament sits and a determination is made of whether the opposition have cobbled together a government, or the Prime Minister can resign at that point and Tony Abbott would be commissioned as the Prime Minister and go to the Parliament as the Prime Minister. But really it depends on the independents if they come to agreement. If there is no agreement, then when the Parliament sits, the Prime Minister will meet as the Prime Minister. The first vote will be on the election of the Speaker. The opposition can put up someone, and that will be the first vote on whether the Prime Minister Gillard stays Prime Minister. But essentially, unless there is some action by the opposition to blast the Prime Minister out of office, either by pulling together a coalition or by doing it when the Parliament sits, the Prime Minister will continue on for the moment.
And how do we know when the Parliament will sit? Who determines that?
I think it will depend on what happens over the next week. If the opposition, I think the Governor-General will advise that she wants the Parliament to sit as soon as possible, so some expression of confidence can be made. I mean, the Governor-General in all this will act on advice of the Prime Minister, whoever the Prime Minister is. But if the Governor-General has any doubts that the Prime Minister has the confidence of the House, she has the right to ask the Prime Minister to prove that confidence from the House. And at this stage, without the House having met, that confidence would be expressed by the House coming together as quickly as possible.
And finally, what about, lots of people are talking about, could we be going back to the polls? Is that possible?
Not in the short term. The House has to sit. The House has to come up with some resolution as to who is going to be the government. That can be done beforehand with deals, but it will still be tested on the floor of the House. But unless the House is unworkable, there isn't going to be another early election. And by unworkable, I mean that the government gets defeated on bill after bill, the opposition won't take office. The Parliament would have to be unworkable before another election would be called. I think it's extremely unlikely that we'd have another election within 12 months.
Antony Green, thank you very much.
Thank you.